In this world, the are tower that those with super abilities can enter and comes out from there with pile of gold, becoming enrich. So Sejan save up every penny to buy a ticket to enter the tower. He eats nearly expired food, buys withered vegetables, lives more miserably than a dog to save, but still hasn't saved up 10% of the money. Then suddenly, the author intervenes, and the space gate leading to the tower unexpectedly opens in front of him. Sejin, as soon as he sees it, shouts excitedly, loudly, declaring his name. I park. Sejin will dedicate my whole life to climbing the tower black hole. Please suck me in. Ha ha ha. Normally, people would find this gate terrifying. This guy should be scared stiff. Who would be excited like this? Probably lost his mind. Seeing the gate starting to narrow, wanting to say goodbye to Sejin. No way he will accept that. With determination, Sejin pushes himself into the black hole. If you don't suck me in, I'll jump in myself. He dives in head first, falls flat on his face, but feels quite happy inside. The first floor of the tower is definitely the place to choose a profession before making money. But when Sejin looks up, he only sees himself inside a cave, no training ground or shopping area. Like those who came back, told he's exactly in a cave underground with sunlight shining down on the photosynthetic grass, feeling bewildered. Oh my goodness, is this really his reality, or is this just a technical joke? 10 years ago, on a beautiful day in Seoul, South Korea, a 99-story tower suddenly rose darker than a dog's poop, standing proudly in Gangnam City. It's not just one tower in South Korea, but a total of 100 towers simultaneously appeared all over the world. But no, I decided to leave a review and make a vlog of the challenge to climb the Get-Go Tower in 6 days and 6 nights. Suddenly, this huge thing appeared, and governments from all over the world sent people to investigate. The conclusion drawn was that the tower is 990 meters tall, cast from an exceptionally solid material, bomb-proof, so no one can find a way to get inside. Suddenly, a few people appeared, penetrating the tower walls and coming out without going through training, but suddenly making a debut in front of the press, being pursued like idols to extract information about how to enter and exit the tower. I didn't know anything. I was sitting on the toilet after finishing a big cup of milk coffee, then suddenly being sucked into a black hole. When I woke up, I found myself on the first floor of the tower, luckily with full clothes on. Those people are called awakeners by the media, randomly selected by some secret forces from various places around the world, and dropped into these 100 towers. They held press conferences only talking about what they knew. Basically, on the first floor, awakeners are allowed to choose a profession, and most people choose to be mages or warriors. After cleaning one floor, they will receive various rewards, along with a ticket. This leaf-like thing is indeed a ticket for freedom to enter and exit the tower, allowing others to use it as well, but only awakeners can actually climb up to the tower. A reporter raised her hand to ask, does anyone know why this tower exists and why people would risk danger and the monsters inside just to enter? No one knows the reason for the appearance of these towers, but many know why people want to venture in. The awakener, standing nearby, waited for the opportunity and then opened the wooden box in her hand, from which a dazzling pile of gold poured out like a stream. Needless to say, the reporters were horrified being scolded by the boss while working and then seeing a pile of gold spilled on the ground like that. Everyone there understood the reason. Immediately entering the tower feels humble, but coming out, not knowing why one is rich. So it became natural for awakeners to sell their tickets for entry from 150 million to 200 million. In a short time, hundreds of people lined up to get them, gradually becoming commonplace. The grocery store owner didn't seem too excited about the news, thinking that these people were living a life of luxury. Do you see that Park Sajan, then 26 years old, buying discounted onions? Whatever the store owner said, he just nodded along, looking at his phone, calculating tuition fees, bank interest, and rent. His savings before were about 12 million. That's all he had accomplished in a few months. If the ticket price goes up again, I wonder if Sejun's teeth would all fall out before he could buy one. He stares at the towering black tower, suddenly letting out a heavy sigh. Then suddenly he remembers he can't lose faith. He cheers himself up by shouting that he will become the chairman soon, looking at the discounted bundle of onions Sejin just bought. Maybe if he follows the way some idols share online, he might make a decent amount of money. Thinking about a bright future from a guy planting onions to becoming a tower-defeating hero, then proposing to Blackpink's Jisoo, he feels ecstatic just thinking about it, cheering himself up eagerly. Suddenly, behind Sajin, something like a swirling vortex appears and expands until its shadow covers his head and the wind blows briskly. He realizes there's something there and turns his back to look. It's a gate. At a glance, Seizure recognizes it as the one that sucked the Awakeners into the tower. His face flushed with excitement. The opportunity has come. He jumps into the black hole, even though it had been rejecting him, and that's how he appears in this empty cave. Not the rumored first floor. It's even worse than a parking lot. To the right is a pond, unsure if it's drinkable water. Above is a skylight to watch the clouds. Overall, it's peaceful. Only inside, Sajan sits skinny like a sleep-deprived fool, lacking even hope, wandering around this cave for a whole day. Sajan sees no way out. He screams, calls for help, cries, even raps, but then realizes there's no one nearby. Could this be the story of Alice's adventures in Wonderland, but with Saijin, the poor guy, falling into a land no one knows, in extreme panic? Suddenly, the phone in his pocket rings. It's already 6 a.m. the next day. The 24-hour challenge as a prehistoric man is over. Now he realizes he's extremely hungry, glancing over at the bag he bought yesterday. Luckily, it's still fresh. A bottle of water, 27 cherry tomatoes, 10 stalks of green onions, a few sweet potatoes, a pumpkin, and an apple. Sijin grabs the apple and bites it eagerly. Eating an apple early in the morning is fine, but eating down to the core still doesn't fill his stomach much. Knowing this now, if he had bought a pack of hot dogs, might last for 3 meals. But Sijin doesn't have that, so he turns to attack the sweet potatoes. Why do the sweet potatoes taste so good in his mouth today, crispy and sweet? Normally, he'd steam or grill them, but now he's so hungry that eating them raw seems fine. This is unverified. Whoever has eaten raw sweet potatoes, comment and share your experience. Chewing too quickly, a piece of sweet potato gets stuck in his throat. Sasan grabs the water and drinks frantically, thinking he's about to die. Having eaten and stay alive, he lies back panting heavily. Temporarily relieving his growling stomach so that he can think normally, he doesn't have time to gaze at clouds and scenery. Now there is a full continuous 24 hours seizure. Wonders if there's a way out before the food runs out. With this kind of food, even the healthy eating group would cry seeing this. And if no one comes to rescue him, he will, of course, turn into a complete dried-up corpse. And to make it worse, a dried-up corpse with a mouthful of green onions smell horrifying just to think about. He snaps out of that dreadful vision, determined not to lie down and wait for death like that. He's made it into the dream tower. Can't give up now. Suddenly, Saijin glances at the apple beside him and gets an idea. He finds a soft, damp spot, digs a small hole, puts the apple core in, and covers it with soil. Next, he divides the onion roots and greens in half. These 10 onions can be divided for both food and planting, making 5 more plots. Sajin fills them with 3 tomatoes and 2 sweet potatoes, adding a bit of water. He feels confidently, alive, and full of vitality. The future he's planting with his own hands is right here, not anywhere else. While he's excited, suddenly, a loud noise startles Sejin. His brain loads faster than a Formula One race car hearing a terrifying sound like this. Let's not say it's a monster attack. When he looks up at the cave ceiling, he realizes it's a solar eclipse occurring. The screeching sound continues to reverberate in the space, resembling the moans of 2 beasts singing California Hotel, making his ears almost deaf. Some shadow hovers above, accompanied by flapping sounds. When he looks up again, he notices the silhouette of a dragon flying across the sky. Oh my, oh my. Isn't that a black dragon so beautiful, so beautiful? It's breathtakingly stunning. Sajin collapses on the ground, gasping for breath, not knowing how he ended up with a strange piece of root. He snapped off earlier under the moonlight. The alarm hauntingly rings, waking Sajin up again, but still at 6 a.m. in the sunlight-filled cave, he brings his phone closer to see how long he's been unconscious. Oh my, 2 days unconscious for 2 whole days, getting up too quickly. His back hurts. lying in the same position for 48 hours. A 26-year-old's back now feels like 62's. After sighing, he sits back down and sighs again, feeling tired and hungry, completely drained of energy. But behind him is a huge, blackened tree. Sane jumps back in shock, realizing it's the onions he planted. How did they grow so quickly? Even taller than him, this supersized version only took 2 days to grow while he was unconscious. How absurd. Cesian calmly reconsiders that perhaps it's the soil conditions in the tower make the plants grow differently than outside. He bends down again to find a spot to plant potatoes and tomatoes. He's surprised that in just 2 days they've sprouted, and there are 52 of them. Like a small farm, the seedlings are still small, so they enjoy good sunlight. But these onion plants have lost their sunlight due to the shade, so Sajin decides to trim the tops with their size increased. The onion leaves have become quite tough, and it seems like he's pulling out entire trees rather than just cutting leaves. He harvests a bunch of small leaves, like harvesting rice. Curious about how giant onions taste, he puts one in his mouth and takes a bite. He opens his mouth wide, thinking he's breathing out a pile of fire like a dragon. The taste is like eating level 7 spicy noodles. So Sajin rushes to the nearby pond to scoop water into his mouth. His mouth swells, but his stomach doesn't seem to have any problems digesting it. It seems to be digesting fine, but he eats carefully to avoid swelling his lips. He takes the onion leaves to dry, then returns to the bunch of potatoes and tomatoes he had set aside from the beginning this morning. There's only a tiny tomato, but Cesian starts to have hope that he won't die of hunger here. Here, there's no night. The sun never sets with occasional lunar phenomena. It's a planet that looks like the moon, but has a green hue that obscures the light for a period. But Saj recalls that this only occurs from the 10th floor onward, while he's clearly in the underground parking lot. Yet a gigantic black dragon appears underground, which likely isn't an illusion, because he's longed for the day he could step into the tower. Saijin has researched a lot about the Phoenix Society cleaning the 37th floor. Most awakened individuals are on the lower floors, so this review channel is full of information. All you need is to join the society to access it. From floor 11 to 20, there are demons, and above that are giant green devils. There's some information about spiders on floor 31, but no one has mentioned dragons. Yet, even lizards aren't mentioned anymore, let alone dragons. However, compared to the information he knew, Saijin suddenly felt extremely doubtful about his worldview. After all, he's in a floor that no one has mentioned. His mind races, feeling like he stumbled upon a floor that no hunter has set foot on, yet feeling incredibly lonely as he opens his eyes to look at the sky. Suddenly, some drop fall on his face, making Sajin sit up. He's surprised and can't believe it's rain, because the Awakeners have said the weather in the tower is always harmonious. Look, there's someone's figure darting over there. Saijin freaks out, thinking some monsters just dropped by to say hello. Turns out it's something white with fur shaped like a rabbit, but it's a rabbit with drooling mouth. The drops of water falling on Saigon's face seem to be from it for sure. He's never seen such a cute monster before, so he keeps staring at it until it jumps down. Oh my, this crazy rabbit doesn't want to die in a cave over 10 meters high? It kicks its foot on Sajin's head while he's still bewildered, then flips around and lands like a true ninja, ignoring the owner of the onion field. The rabbit runs back there, pointing at a tree and squeaking piping. It doesn't look like a normal rabbit at all, and it's even saying pie. Is it a Pikachu? A white version. Huh? Do you want some onion? Sajin steps forward to cut off a piece of the green onion and decisively hands it to the Pikachu-like creature. It takes it, eagerly, chewing, happily without any sign of spiciness. Feel free to have more. There's plenty of onion. Sajin says he's getting used to eating this spicy stuff, noticing the onions growing rapidly at this rate. He could harvest twice a day and still be fine. After finishing the onion leaves, the Pikachu-like creature stands up excitedly, raising its hands. Saig thought it was full and wanted to exercise, but it turns out it's calling someone from the cave entrance. Another unfamiliar rabbit-like figure jumps down and is promptly greeted by the Pikachu-like creature. It's holding a straw hat and a watering can in its hands. In no time, the There are two Pikachu-like creatures dressed like farmers in front of Saigon. He stares blankly for a moment, finding these two rabbits strange. He even realizes they might be a married couple. Pie. Seems about right? They do look affectionate. Hey, don't tell me at this point, but we just realized the main characters of the story aren't the poor lad Sajin, but this rabbit couple. The gentle sunlight filters through the cave entrance, illuminating the fresh onion leaves. A pair of scissors cuts the onions swiftly, and nearby, a watering can sprinkles water on the tiny seedlings on the ground. The one doing those tasks is certainly not Sajin, but the rabbit pair he met yesterday. They happily sing while each doing their own tasks, looking like the hosts here, while the actual host is sitting in a corner watching the male Ral rabbit sings, arms holding the freshly cut onion leaves. Sajin begins to feel regret, was eating onions all day. Not enough. Now he's forced to watch this romantic movie. But who's to blame now? Blame himself for being naive. Yesterday, the rabbits begged him to stay here with extremely pitiful looks, with sparkling round eyes and adorable pipey cries that could melt anyone's heart. Ordinary people like Saijin can't resist such a full-force attack. That super cute appearance has pierced his heart. All right, I'll stay as long as you want. I really like it here, but I still have to pretend to be cool outside. No work, no food. You can't just sit around and not eat. You know, Seijin demanded that they assist with farm work, even though there wasn't much to do in this cave besides cutting onion leaves. Before he could finish, the two rabbits jumped into his lap, their soft fur constantly rubbing against him, making him almost faint from their cuteness. Now that he's calmed down and thought about it, Seizure suddenly feels like he's being psychologically manipulated. These rabbits are too dangerous. He can only sigh. He's already agreed inadvertently, and now he has to accept it. Suddenly, his eyes catch the farming tools on the rabbits. It seems those items are equipment. The male rabbit's water bottle has an endless supply of water, while the apron the female rabbit wears is like Doraemon's magical pocket, constantly producing necessary farming tools. Even the rabbits are fully equipped from head to toe, yet Sajin has nothing. Does that make him feel jealous or angry? Lost in thought, the male rabbit waves his hand repeatedly, signaling that they finish their work and want him to check aside from the drying onion leaves. Everything else remained the same, with no changes to the potatoes. Glancing over at the tomatoes, Sejin was extremely excited to see that the saplings had grown significantly larger. Could it be because of the diligent care from the rabbit couple? While he was busy admiring the plants, the two rabbits watched anxiously, their eyes seeming to ask if that was enough to make them stay. Sejin slowly turned around and then gave a thumbs up. Come on over, you two. As soon as he said that, the rabbits happily jumped up and then excitedly chattered with each other, leaving Sejun clueless. In less than a second, they transformed forward as fast as lightning, causing the ground dust to roll up into a circle, startling him and making him fall backward. Once he regained his senses, he saw them huddled in a corner. The female rabbit directed the male to dig, and after a while, he dug a hole. The female rabbit happily sang and made a flower wreath, then hung it on a wooden board. A rabbit hole appeared, and the female rabbit proudly pointed to their new home, while the male rabbit looked exhausted from the digging. Seijin couldn't help but marvel at the rabbit's speed, especially the male one, and praised him profusely, making him very pleased. While laughing happily, he suddenly felt a white arm slap him. The female rabbit was blushing and looked embarrassed. Sajin, sensing something fishy going on, indeed, seeing the female rabbit pointing towards the rabbit hole, made the male rabbit turn pale, hastily shielding his body, but still being dragged away by his wife. He pleaded for help from Sajin. In despair, feeling breathless from the digging, and now lacking the strength to come up with excuses for days on end, the male rabbit's screams vanished behind the door, replaced by the sounds of kisses from the female rabbit. Sajan stood outside laughing to himself, wishing his friend's strength to overcome this ordeal. What a life indeed, dealing with such unexpected situations, a 26-year-old guy feeling jealous of a male rabbit, quite a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? However, he quickly regained his optimism and retreated to his own space, respecting the privacy of the rabbit couple. Sane leaned back on the pile of onion leaves, comforting himself, acknowledging that, despite the solitude, having rabbit companions wasn't so bad after all. As he relaxed, black smoke rose from his armpits, wondering if it was due to being dirty for so long that it had reached this level of odor. Feeling too hot, he jumped up like a spring, accompanied by a sharp cry. Saijin rolled on the ground due to the burning sensation on his back. It was only later that he realized the cause was the dried onion leaves catching fire as the sunlight passed directly through the water bottle aimed at the onion leaves. Watching that scene sparked an idea in his mind. Necessity truly is the mother of invention, activating his intelligence. Sajin's face looked as guilty as a thief, but in reality, he felt like he was narrating a survival vlog in this harsh environment. I was fortunate to find onion leaves and a water bottle thanks to diligently watching YouTube while outside. He remembered how to use a clear plastic bottle as a lens to focus sunlight and create fire, like those survival vloggers on deserted islands. However, reality and imagination were worlds apart. He arched his back, holding up the water bottle, wanting to drop his arms, but only smoke rose instead of igniting a fire. Disappointed, he slammed his hand on the ground, not knowing where he went wrong. He sighed in frustration, feeling dejected. He sat on the ground, wondering where he had made a mistake. He sighed heavily, and yet a small flame flickered in the middle of the onion leaves, astonishing Sajan. Though he seemed to understand a little in the rabbit hole, after a fierce struggle, the male rabbit was exhausted, panting heavily, followed by the female rabbit's satisfied face emerging from the burrow. Seeing the boss collapsed in front of them, thinking the boss was depressed because he was abandoned, the male rabbit was extremely worried, approaching, only to find him blowing air into the pile of dried onions. Although it didn't understand what was going on, it immediately offered help, and Sajin happily agreed with the rabbits taking care of blowing air into the fire. Sajion cheered them on while holding up the water bottle to focus the light. This smooth teamwork finally paid off, and a flame burst forth. Success achieved. Sajin cheered joyfully now that there was fire. They could cook and boil water like humans again. His eyes glanced over the onions behind, immediately cutting some to test out the fire. 2 obedient rabbits sat quietly watching him grill the onions. "Is this okay?" Sajin lifted the slightly charred onion to check quickly, removing all the burnt parts before eagerly taking a bite. With just one bite, his whole body trembled with excitement, making the rabbits think he was poisoned. "Oh my, it's so sweet." Sagan's eyes suddenly lit up, the sweetness like sugar rushing straight to the brain, an explosion of flavor never before experienced, making him feel like a white horse galloping across vast green fields. Chewing eagerly, he continued grilling onions, praising their deliciousness, making the rabbit couple drool. The male rabbit immediately followed suit, grilling onions, alternating between chewing and praising. Both of them hugged each other's cheeks, never having tasted anything so delicious in their lives. "Eat some more." Sajin generously told the 2 rabbits to make themselves at home. There's no meat, but they can eat as many vegetables as they want. Another day spent wandering in the Black Tower, but today his stomach was filled with cooked food, so he could sleep well tonight. The next morning, Sajin lazily stretched and got up, heading to the nearby pond to wash his face. As usual, as he was washing his face, he happened to glance over to the side, where the garden that was barren a few days ago was now covered in greenery. The onions had been harvested, the tomatoes had been watered, and even the seemingly withered sweet potatoes had sprouted lush green vines. The rabbit couple did a great job. Sajin was extremely pleased with their diligence. Then suddenly remembered last night, after they got the fire, all 3 of them made torches from onion leaves. The rabbits were in charge of cutting the onions while he tied the leaves together and placed them around the cave. With the light moving around became easier because it was dark by the pond. He also carefully placed a large torch there. Before he could find a place to put the torch, there were small movements under the water. A fish suddenly darted straight at Sajin's face, startling him greatly. But thanks to his quick reflexes, he managed to dodge to the side in time. The fish missed its prey and flopped onto the ground, struggling helplessly, much to Sajin's surprise. because it was the first time he had seen a fish being attracted by light. It was truly magical. The Tower of Magic was indeed different. Everything was surreal. So now, besides having light, he was also supplemented with protein. Sajin quickly grabbed the floundering fish on the ground, wrapped it in onion leaves, and placed it in the fire. Sajin eagerly grilled the fish. It had been a long time since he smelled this rich aroma, making his mouth watered incessantly when the fish was cooked. He couldn't wait to take a big bite. It wasn't fishy at all. It was incredibly delicious. As he was chewing, he heard disappointed sounds nearby. He turned and saw a pair of white rabbits staring at him, pointing at his mouth, which was salivating profusely. What's this do? Rabbits also like salty food. They nodded in annoyance, and he suddenly remembered that these weren't ordinary rabbits. Life continued to pass by quietly like that, until a few days later, Blue Moon appeared again, thanks to which Sijin knew its cycle was 30 days to keep track of the days he had used a laptop and a power bank to charge his phone. But they didn't last long either. One setback after another, he resorted to carving symbols on the stone to record the number of days he had been lost here in the blink of an eye. It had been 61 days living like a primitive man, no electricity, no internet. But he managed to survive, mostly thanks to the rabbit's routine. Like clockwork, they always went to sleep at 7 p.m. and woke up at 5 a.m., so he never feared counting the days wrong. And some good news had arrived at the farm a few days ago. Early in the morning, the rabbit husband had just opened the door, and a bunch of gold and furred rabbit babies ran outside, looking at the mischievously adorable bunch of youngsters. He laughed with tears in his eyes, wanting to hug and cuddle them all, wishing to see them every day. Oh, old man. The 5 rabbit babies immediately hopped over, causing Sason to fall backward to the ground, but he was extremely happy. The appearances of these fluffy little bundles had made his dull life become more joyful than ever. Suddenly, having an additional 5 workers to plant vegetables wasn't too bad, huh? But their 2 elderly parents weren't as thrilled. They were already feeling weary early in the morning. Being a kind uncle, he immediately took on the responsibility of looking after the children so the rabbits could enjoy their breakfast, leisurely, carrying all 5 round fluffy bundles to the garden to admire the tomato flowers. But none of them wanted to sit still. The group of excited rabbit babies played hide and seek, leaving the uncle sitting there laughing foolishly, taking advantage of the rabbit babies playing nicely. Sijin used the spare time to pollinate the flowers, using a stick to poke around for a while, making his 26-year-old life want to split in two. Wouldn't it be nice if there were bees here? After sighing deeply and reluctantly bending his back to continue, he was about to resume when he saw a baby rabbit burying its head into a flower. Perhaps seeing the uncle working hard, the baby rabbit wanted to help with pollination, using its nose, but ended up getting its nose covered in pollen, sneezing and falling backward. Seeing this, he burst into laughter, as if he had won a lottery. This scene was worth more than gold, laughing until his jaw hurt. He finally helped the baby up and scolded it gently, telling it not to do that again. But suddenly his eyes widened with surprise. Fruit. After a grueling period of hard work, the tomato plants had produced their first fruits, bringing joyous singing and dancing to both man and rabbits in the garden. This was just one day before Blue Moon's appearance. Although the sunlight was still streaming into the cave, it was already late afternoon. Sajin hurriedly prepared for the upcoming event to avoid attracting monsters to the cave. He extinguished the large fire, leaving only a small flame in a crevice between the rocks, and carefully blocked it with a small stone. To prevent light from leaking out, he also camouflaged himself with a bunch of rolled-up onion leaves on his head and body. Personally, I think the main character looks no different. The rabbit couple were also coaxing their kids into the cave. Everything was ready. Glancing up at the sky, he guessed it was almost time, so he instructed the rabbit father to close the door carefully. If they survived the night, they would meet again tomorrow. After all, Blue Moon is just a mosquito game, right? Seijun raised his thumb to reassure both the rabbits and himself. Just a few hours later, the warm sunlight disappeared, replaced by the cold blue light of the moon. The blue moon officially began. The rustling of insects and the growling of monsters made him unable to sleep. When will it end? Seijin, exhausted, looked out at the familiar garden. Although he had carefully hidden everything with onion leaves to mask the scent, he still couldn't feel at ease. Every time he heard the chilling howls echoing in the distance, he tensed up, goosebumps covering his body. He prayed earnestly, hoping this time would end peacefully. As he was praying, a loud noise rang out, making Seijin freeze terrified as he looked up at the mouth of the cave outside. A large, chubby red foot was stomping heavily on the ground. A big fat figure was waddling, causing trees to sway. After a while, it noticed the small mouth of the cave under the bright moonlight, and a giant red bear appeared, towering. It stood right in front of the cave mouth, casting its shadow on the ground. Seijin was speechless, shocked, thinking it's the end for them. Anxiously looking up, he saw the enraged bear, saliva dripping, limbs motionless. Seijin tried to calm down, planning to escape before being noticed in. I noticed, slowly and gently reaching for his backpack. Unfortunately, the backpack was not zipped, so the items inside immediately fell out. The tomatoes and plastic bottle tumbled to the ground. Seijin stood frozen, staring at the scattered items. Sweat continuously poured down, heart pounding, slowly raising his eyes. Wow! Surprise, young man. The bear's furry face was right in front of him, causing all the suppressed horror to burst out into immediate screams. Seijin widened his eyes and screamed, causing the bear to quickly growl and spit out foam. This is it, he's done for with this bear. The sun was shining directly on his head, but the old man was still sleeping, drooling. The baby rabbits tried to shake him awake, but to no avail. Oh my goodness, he'll wake up later. Seijin stuttered, intending to push the rabbits away. The rabbit father couldn't let this boss touch even a single hair of his babies. He didn't hesitate to act first, and there was a crisp slap. The rabbit father woke up and slapped him hard, making Sajin's eyes sparkle with pain just from watching it. Sajin stuttered incoherently as he sat up. Oh my. He thought he had just returned from death's door. The entire rabbit family surrounded him, thinking he was dead. They were moments away from mourning their loss and appointing a new leader. Seijin looked around in a daze, realizing the sky was clear and Blue Moon had ended. He breathed a sigh of relief. The rabid father let out a sound of agreement, looking very awake compared to Seijin. Why do I always faint during Blue Moon events? He wondered, every time, leaving me with aching body and a fuzzy mind, feeling nauseous. He tried to stimulate every nerve to remember what happened last night. From the moment our eyes met with the bear to its earth-shattering roar, the memory automatically stopped, recalling that extreme fear still haunted him, almost becoming a midnight snack for the monster. Seeing the uncle trembling in fear, the little rabbits jumped on him for comfort, but somehow he kept shivering uncontrollably. It turns out, fainting in the middle of the dewy night led to catching a cold. The mother rabbit, upon noticing, rushed back to where he hid the fire yesterday, adding more dry onion leaves to make a big fire. Seijin was covered by a blanket of onion leaves, sitting huddled in front of the blazing fire. A while later, the mother rabbit even brought out a fish for him to eat. Feeling exhausted, yet having a hot, steaming piece of fish to eat with a few cute kids around, all fatigue seemed to vanish. However, Sajin had a new concern that the monster had discovered their hiding place, unsure if it would return. Yesterday, he narrowly escaped death because the cave was too small for it to enter, but if he encountered a smaller monster, he would have died long ago. Seijin had tried hard to survive until now. With a family and descendants to protect, he couldn't die so easily. Looking down at the fish nibbling away, taking another mouthful, he resolved to eat plenty of food to become stronger. The elders have taught that only with food can one find the way. The stomach must be full first to have the strength to fight. While chewing on the rabbit, Seijin was startled by a sudden shout. He immediately looked in the direction it pointed and discovered a tomato shining with a sea blue color, thinking he still had aftershocks from the fainting spell. He hurried back to see that not only was it an unusual color, but it was also as big as a golf ball. Until now, tomatoes were always tiny. This strange-looking one must have come from heaven. Sajin held up the tomato in amazement. It looked uniquely fascinating. He wanted to recite a spell for the tomato to fall down, but before it could fall, Seijin fainted again. As he was marveling at the size of the tomato, a system notification suddenly appeared. Congratulations! He had completed the task of harvesting moon energy containing fruits. This wasn't a typical notification window. Seijin was stunned, his mouth agape in disbelief. The system sent another message. This remarkable achievement has attracted the attention of the tower management. He thought he might receive a rewarding gift or prize, but the tower management showed displeasure, which bewildered him. What's wrong? Who wouldn't be happy about this? The tower manager explained that he had just discovered that Seijin was an uninvited guest trying to figure out how to conceal his mistake. Reading the message made him extremely angry. Realizing that his presence here was just a misunderstanding, Seijin frantically shook the system board. For the past 61 days, he had struggled to survive in this strange place, and now they're saying it's just a mistake. Wait until I'm out, then I'll sue them all to the authorities. Maybe they think he's too aggressive and might throw a punch. The system silenced him again, making him feel incredibly uncouth. Suddenly, the message the tower manager is awakening. You appeared before he could even think whether he was a kitty or a Mickey Mouse. A green light emerged beneath his feet. As he transitioned from dream to reality, he slowly realized he was assigned by the tower manager to play the role of a fully awakened consciousness. Moreover, he was assigned a specific profession by the tower manager. Seijin excitedly hoped for luck to come to him as a wizard. In response to his strong hope, the tower manager assigned him a very relevant profession. He became a tower farmer, ranked F, with a bit of fireworks for extra fun. Too happy, Seijin, and the rabbit stood frozen like statues. Is this expression, too happy? The tower manager generously offered additional benefits for being a farmer, including robust health, closeness to nature, and points for harvesting crops. Hold on status window, explain it to me again. Why am I being asked to be a farmer when I'm planting crops? Why it doesn't know? Because there's no darkness here, so there are no stars. The system always displays Park Sajin, level 1 tower, farmer, profession with no skills, yet Seijin felt like his blood pressure was dropping. Envisioning a grim scenario the day he leaves this place and gets invited to a talk show in a fancy suit. The host announces the awakening of the simulated park. Sejun then respectfully asks what his profession is, to which he replies, I'm a tower farmer. How humiliating. Seijin shouted in a hoarse voice. Even the chairman of the Farmers Association didn't seem impressed. Clutching the green tomato in his hand, anger surged through Seijin, almost crushing the fruit, until he noticed the rabbit family looking up at him. The whole family looked at Seijin with surprise. He stepped back, gasping as he realized he was scaring them. Suddenly, Sejeon felt his grip on the tomato weaken, realizing how hard everyone had worked to grow it. The fire on the pile of dry onions still burning brightly, the onions they planted swayed in the sun. The group had put in a lot of effort to grow this with a gentle smile. Seijin decided to embrace his role as a farmer. From the surface of the tomato emerged a glowing circle like an electronic device, followed by a sudden appearance of information, before Sejeon revealing it to be an E-grade magic tomato, infused with Blue Moon's energy, granting 0.05 experience points, going from one surprise to another. Seijin couldn't believe this seemingly ordinary fruit was actually an item. Although the experience points gained were small, it still brought Seijin a small joy, seeing Seijin and his farm clearly inside the glass sphere. Someone seemed unhappy in grinding their teeth. Seijin, oblivious to all these, was busy holding hands and dancing with the rabbit family. This system is most adept at stirring up trouble when people are happy, suddenly assigning him a task to provide magic tomatoes to the building's management. The reward is the farmer's skill without completing the task of handing over the tomatoes. Death is inevitable. The mission is stated as if it's threatening him, extremely absurd. Seijin feels a shiver at the word death, calling it a task, but its main function seems to be intimidation, right? If you want something, ask for it, politely. Speaking like that won't get you anywhere. Do you see how simple human life is? He shakes his head in frustration with an unaccepting demeanor, but the word death stubbornly remains on the window, eroding his determination. Reluctantly, Seijin bows deeply at a 90-degree angle, offering the tomato because he still very much desires to live. The item disappears from his hand, marking the completion of the mission, and the window switches to receiving a new task. Feeling tense, suddenly becoming simple, makes Seijin lose his vigilance. He happily clicks on the receive button, obtaining the farming skill, albeit a basic one-seed planting level 1, slightly enhancing the germination ability. When a seed is sown, he wants to curse so badly, but Seijin's heart has died a little. He's a farmer, not a one-handed farmer, so why give him the seed planting skill, and on top of that, only a slight enhancement? Why not make it stronger for a better gift? Well, he has to accept it as it is. The next day, he harvests green onions again. Seijin holds his onion torch and ventures into the pond in the cave, attracting the crazy fish that leaps up at the sight of light, hitting it with a blow that sends it crashing to the ground. He thought it was a carp or catfish, but it turns out to be a very strange piranha. Since waking up, Seijin can now earn experience points for each fish caught. He earns 2 points, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and they're the only source of protein in the cave. Now that he's reached level 2, he slows down a bit. The pond isn't that big. If he keeps greedily catching them, these fish will become extinct. He takes the grilled fish. Seijin eagerly calls the kids to come and eat with him. The slightly older bunny. Kids can already eat a whole fish by themselves, keeping him busy distributing the rabbit. Couple quite enjoy this dish. They find the fish delicious. Since becoming a fake awakener, Seijin has seen information online that they're not white Pikachu, just simple white rabbits working as farmers. However, he's been following this channel for a long time and hasn't seen any mention of this monster species, perhaps because he hasn't registered as a member. Perhaps this species specializes in hardcore farming rather than fighting. So fake awakeners specialize in clearing levels and don't know about them, unable to communicate with them. Seijin can't ask anything. He thinks the rabbit couple lost their farm for some reason, wandering until they coincidentally found him and their prehistoric cave. After everyone finishes eating, Seijin stands up excitedly, saying, "Today is an important day for the farm," and the rabbit couple immediately respond, the moment everyone has been waiting for the magical tomatoes ripen and hang thickly on the branches, drawing admiring gazes after so long of sowing, watering, and caring. It's finally harvest day, and Sasan feels touched. Seisan reaches out his hand, ready to pick them, but as he comes close, he feels his hand trembling uncontrollably. The rabbits watch nervously, and he feels his heart pounding, afraid his fingers might accidentally knock them off. He raises the precious tomato high, and everyone marvels at this ripe, juicy fruit. The information window keeps popping up, announcing a gain of 10 experience points for harvesting ripe tomatoes. It turns out it's not just a plant, it's also an item with its own information. Releasing fat and adding 0.1 experience points for the eater are its greatest benefits. Although it's a small increase, it accumulates. Eating 10 tomatoes would yield a substantial score. Seijin starts thinking about harvesting more tomatoes to accumulate points, the second fruit, then the third, all reported by the system as ripe tomatoes, but by the 7th, it's no longer the case. It's only then that Seijin realizes he needs to pick the exact ripe tomatoes to gain points. Slightly green or slightly ripe won't count. It's tough, isn't it? The rabbits ignore him, happily playing around in the garden, dragging him along. After a while, Seisan manages to harvest quite a few tomatoes, earning enough points to reach level 4. Excitedly, he brings 1 tomato to his mouth, intending to taste it. Seisan hears some rustling nearby. It's the rabbit husband and the whole rabbit family signaling to him to share the food a bit. He realizes he didn't make the food alone, so he shouldn't eat it alone. Seijin puts on a pleading face and offers it to them, even having to beg them not to be angry anymore, sounding as humble as a master trying to please a pampered cat. Only when each one has a share in their hands does he dare to prepare to eat. The ripe tomato looks quite large compared to the rabbit family, but to Seijun, it's just like tossing a ball into a hoop, chewing slowly in his mouth for a few seconds. His eyes widen in surprise as he realizes he's lying on lush green grass. A streak of yellow in the wide sky bursts into a blossoming flower, attracting Seiju to sit up and look closely. He feels the fresh taste of the grass in his throat, mingled with sweetness and sourness like a summer fireworks display. It's an amazing feeling. Suddenly, Sedge's eyes filled with tears of emotion, but in the eyes of the rabbits, he seems foolish. If they could speak, they'd probably ask if this tomato was drugged, since their big brother is eating it and saying it smells like grass. The tomato harvest was so abundant that they couldn't finish eating them all. The rabbit family had to dig another storage pit, accompanied by freshly cut green onions. Each rabbit cub helped their parents, seeming a bit overwhelmed by the size, but Seizure and Lying There realized they had grown much bigger. The white rabbit's offspring, being farm rabbits, were indeed diligent. Instead of being a lazy bum like him, Sejin was already in bed, preparing to sleep. By this time, pulling the dried onion mask over his eyes to block out the light. Sejin fell asleep as soon as he lay down. This system really has issues, only popping up in strange moments. Sejin had no idea. He rolled over and snored, causing the window to grumble and activate the Nokia Remix alarm clock. Nobody but the tower manager jumped up, demanding tomatoes. His hand mechanically accepted the reward without any enthusiasm. Indeed, if you don't love, don't sow hope. He harvested so much fruit, and yet only got the harvesting skill. He swallowed back his tears, but the next morning, he realized how useful this skill was. The tomatoes he picked were not ripe enough, but because of this skill, they all turned ripe. It was like having a golden touch for tomato harvesting. From then on, his points soared rapidly, and he didn't even need to wait for the tomatoes to ripe before harvesting them, just as he was about to rest the system. On behalf of the tower manager, popped up asking for a ridiculous 200 tomatoes. He knew this day would come sooner or later, and this time, there wasn't even a reward. It was outright robbery. With a reluctant expression, Sejin reluctantly offered dozens of tomatoes to the tower manager, accompanied by a few apologies, but that was just the beginning. Any opportunity the manager got, he demanded more. If there was any slip-up, he'd demand 250 tomatoes, and if fate struck, it would be 300 tomatoes. By the end of the day, the demand was 500 tomatoes, with no room for negotiation. Seeing that number 500, Sajin felt his temples pulsating, uttering a firm no. The tower manager couldn't believe someone dared to refuse his task. He felt rebelliousness for the first time. If he was going to rebel, he might as well do it in front of the system board, demanding 500 tomatoes from a garden smaller than a nostril. Was like to demanding the king to bow down to the farmer if he could argue. So could the system. It told him the tower manager didn't care. The farmer's job was to plant and harvest. So stop complaining and hand over the tomatoes quickly. Saijin smirked, reminding the manager that wasn't his problem. Was it? He tightened his grip on the bunch of onions in his hand, his voice trembling, saying these fruits were the result of his hard work. If the manager cared, he wouldn't demand so much. Accusing Sajin of making a mountain out of a molehill officially triggered a rage within him. His face twisted in extreme anger. He refused. Oh my goodness, this guy is in my tower. Remember that? Sajin shrugged off the manager's demands, deciding not to comply, and turned to harvest onions with the rabbits, ignoring the system's repeated reminders. The punishment for refusing tasks was death awaiting him. After grilling fish and sharing tomatoes, the system was ignored several times, getting slammed into Sage's face, attracting his attention, and in return, the manager's face twisted in extreme anger. The tower manager wondered if a farmer's job was that simple. Why complain? Managers are managers, and farmers like him just follow instructions. Seijin was tired of arguing, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot, muttering that they forced him to do all these without acknowledging his abilities, offering rewards as tiny as grapes, but demanding countless tasks as he looked up, his eyes welled with tears, his trembling voice criticizing, what a terrible manager. On the other side of the globe, the manager heard the farmer cursing him, feeling both pain and heartache, gritting his teeth, thinking he was about to get scolded, but instead heard the unexpected I'm sorry, he didn't even finish his sentence. Sijian was happily eating a tomato, and the manager, with a relieved expression, swallowed the last word being scolded for not fulfilling his duties. Don't blame the sea for being salty. Got it. If you want it fair and square, take these 5 tomatoes. Then let's call it a break. No more demands. I won't give in. The rabbits don't even have anything to eat, and they're fighting over it with the tomatoes disappearing from Sajian's hand. The tower manager accepted them, but he still felt bitter, saying this is the last time he'll let it slide. Got it after conveying the message. The window disappeared immediately. Saijin smirked faintly. It seems like the tower manager wants to apologize to him. Suddenly, he found the manager quite cute indeed. On the 91st day, since Sajin jumped into the teleportation black hole, he met the blue planet for the 4th time. The dim light of the eclipse shone down on the crops, while Sajin covered himself with the Union leaf cloak, hugging a pillow against the cave wall. He worried he would have to endure the horrific screeching again due to not having enough experience points. Despite trying to eat tomatoes to increase his points, Sajin still felt afraid, hoping for time to pass quickly until nightfall. Suddenly, the light from the blue planet shimmered on the leaves. Sejin noticed something strange. The eclipse light, as usual, seemed to penetrate the green tomatoes on the branch, making them still green, but with a toxic tint. The whole tree had only one sparkling blue-green fruit. Sejin, though stunned, realized he had to harvest it immediately. But that's not all. He also noticed the light shining on the sweet potato leaves on the ground. It seemed like there was some sort of arrangement. Sejin felt a strange idea in his head, so he stood up cautiously and ran back to the vegetable garden to verify his thoughts. Using his bare hands, he parted the leaves and dug into the soil beneath the sweet potato field until he could see everything underneath. The result was as expected, but Sasan was still pleasantly surprised. The sweet potatoes absorbed energy from the green moonlight, enhancing their delicious flavor and providing a boost to physical strength. This type of tuber ranked E with a storage time of up to 30 days and a slight increase in experience points by pulling up the sweet potatoes. The system prompted a skill upgrade in harvesting, adding 50 experience points. Then he glanced at the green tomato on the branch, reached down, and felt an unbelievable sensation with both hands holding 2 green fruits with a toxic tint. Satan's heart was filled with joy. However, his happiness was short-lived as the secondary task window popped up again. Once again, the tower manager demanded, aggressively for both the sweet potatoes and the green tomatoes, threatening consequences if not complied with. This time, he demanded both the sweet potatoes and the green tomatoes, refusing to accept refusal, each demanding their own, insisting on their own terms. Sejin cleverly presented a basket of freshly harvested red tomatoes to make up for the previous refusal. Hoping to avoid further complications, whether the manager knew how to reject or not, Sejin was determined not to compromise. Sejin stubbornly refused to hand over each item separately. The tower manager reluctantly, eventually relented, allowing him to enjoy the time harvesting these 2 green fruits. Thinking too much gave Sejin a headache, so he tossed the tomato into his mouth and chewed slowly. His body trembled as if suppressing something, because now his mouth seemed to have dozens of fireworks exploding one after another easily, earning him half a point of experience. Such a small tomato had such effects and flavors that tingled his taste buds. Sejin cleverly wrapped the sweet potatoes in a bundle of onions and threw them into the fire, even without silver paper. Grilling like this was fine. The anticipation of waiting for the food to cook was delightful. The next morning, after the blue moon disappeared, the rabbit's shop opened. The whole rabbit family was puzzled to see Sejin already waiting there, placing the hot sweet potato on a leaf. He held it out to show the whole rabbit family. Even though the leaf wasn't opened yet, they could smell the fragrant aroma emanating from inside, making their mouths water. Suddenly, the rabbit husband jumped out to stop his wife and children, pointing towards Sejin and saying something like, "PP," which seemed to make the family a bit sad, but they accepted it nonetheless. Sajin realized its intention was to let the human have it to eat, because there was only one potato which touched him deeply. He reached out to pet the rabbit husband's head, deeply moved by its affection towards him. But actually, it was because last night he had secretly eaten one alone, slowly peeling the purple skin. Sajin brought it to his mouth and took a big bite, then sprayed the whole potato out of his mouth. It was too hot for his tongue. Sajin grabbed his throat and screamed, while the rabbit family only paid attention to the sweet potato he had just spat out. The rabbit husband didn't let it slide. He quickly tried to grab the sweet potato, but 5 other golden hands were faster. Its children each took a piece and stuffed it into their mouths, eagerly ignoring their father's longing gaze. Unexpectedly, as soon as the potato touched their tongues, they couldn't bear the heat and continuously spat it out, lasting about 2 seconds before spitting it onto the ground. Seijin couldn't eat the baby rabbits, cried bitterly with burnt mouths. The rabbit husband didn't get any pieces and was disappointed to the max. So the precious piece of sweet potato suddenly became a discarded item on the ground, because it was too hot for anyone to eat, casually. The next morning, Sajin announced that from today onwards, he would plant sweet potato sprouts. Right? When the baby rabbits were chewing on the sprouts, they looked up at Sasian in confusion, wondering if this human wanted to plant what they were eating. Indeed, he pointed at them, forbidding them from eating sweet potato sprouts from now on. Extremely shocking news. These rabbits, who had become plump from eating sweet potato sprouts, were now forbidden to eat them. They either jumped on Sun Sajin to express their protest or lay on the ground sulking. Each rabbit had its own way, but overall, they refused. Out of options, Sajin had to bring out something else in exchange, namely super special snacks for the little ones. The baby rabbits had the same temperament as their mother. As soon as they heard about the snacks, they were all in their mouths watering and their eyes sparkling with cuteness. So it was time to get to work. Seijin ordered each of the rabbit babies to carry a sweet potato sprout to the task. Passing by the mother rabbit cutting onions, Seijin asked her to leave a large onion plant for future harvesting. He was aiming to plant seeds instead of existing plants, to see if it would activate any special benefits. On the other side, the baby rabbits, fueled by snacks, worked at full capacity. One dug holes, one carried the sprouts, and another planted them, completing the task efficiently. 5 baby rabbits plus their father helped with watering, and in no time, nearly 10 sprouts were planted, fresh and enticing, unable to resist. One of the baby rabbits secretly nibbled on a sprout, only to get a swift tap on the head from its father, Sajin's. Blue Tomato Garden grew increasingly abundant with branches, heavy with fruit. He harvested hundreds of them, gaining experience points and advancing from a farmer level F to E, bringing the tomatoes close to the fire. Sajin meticulously prepared snacks for the young farmers on the other side. The tower manager couldn't overlook this. He peeked to see what Sajin was doing, but vanished when Sajin turned back, like spying on someone for mischief rather than curiosity. So Sajin called the kids back from their break, excitedly introducing his exclusive grilled blue tomatoes skewered on piranha bones, exquisitely crafted to make the fruit sweeter and juicier. Each rabbit got a plant. Even their rabbit parents had a share. Their eyes gleaming with excitement, eager to eat while still hot, Sejun had to stand up and caution them to blow on it to avoid burning their mouths with a skewer in hand. Observing the successfully grown potato sprouts, he used one hand to dig the ground, pulling out a mature plant, yielding a bunch of swinging potatoes. These were grade eat potatoes, enhancing stamina slightly and aiding in fat reduction. Each plant yielded him 5 potatoes, totaling 15 of higher quality than the first harvest. Spotting a forgotten sprout on the ground, Sejin quickly replanted it, wasting no plant after tending to the soil. The system prompted successful seeding, meaning Sejin needed to plant all by himself to upgrade his skill points. He raised his hand to signal the little ones to stop aiming to earn a few points on his own. In the tower's library, a bulky figure nestled among stacks of books leaning towards the firelight. Someone's black, sharp-nailed hand held a skewer with 20 blue tomatoes, roasting them over the blazing fire before devouring nearly all of them in one go. The mouth seemed to relish the taste, but immediately spat them out due to their bitterness. The black dragon's tail twisted uncomfortably, only realizing later that the bitterness was from the burnt outer skin with a bit of sweetness inside it, went back to its sphere to see what the farmer was up to, realizing Sen wasn't diligently working, but lounging with the rabbit children eating potatoes. No, it couldn't be. How could they eat potatoes without me? Aileen Fratani, the mighty black dragon. Oh, my, not naming names. But But I thought it was Fang's son from that dragon training secret thought he wouldn't wander the streets anymore. Yet here he is managing this tower, specializing in shaking down vegetables and fruits from Sajin and his little ones. It's quite bitter not being invited to dine together. Suddenly, a supplementary system window pops up out of nowhere. The task is to bring a baked potato to the tower manager with no reward, but refusal means death. Suddenly, the potato he's chewing tastes much worse. Seijin decides to butter up the manager. Why not say so from the start? Now there's a potato threatening what? Or else offer the reward. Seijin will reconsider. A few seconds later, a window pops up, activating an A-rank mission still about offering a baked potato with a bonus related to the profession, saying, "So isn't it cute? Just give it already." Seijin raises his hand to select and open the mission reward, receiving a level 1 seed shop, allowing one purchase per 30 days. He jumps up in joy, now realizing it's somewhat similar to the shop on the first floor that the Awakeners often mention. Sajin activates the shop skill, immediately kicking off the empty history, suddenly remembering that buying requires money. He, like a genuine farmer, wonders if he can exchange vegetables for it. The system knows that no matter how hard the farmer tries, Sajin is still poor, so it gives him a tower coin for free, as if his eyes were selling him out. Seijin is extremely surprised. The shop system is unusually generous. Today, in the real world, a tower coin is worth 1,000,000. The system informs that there are 3 random seed types available each day. At Saigon's current level, he can buy 1 type to plant. The catch is, even though there's only 1 type, there are 1 seed sounding grand, but quite pricey in market terms. He pondered for a while and decided to eliminate 2 options, red chili and cabbage, as they weren't very stable. So the remaining one is carrot seeds, right? The rabbit family immediately turns their heads to look at Seijin. Upon hearing the words carrot seeds, he realizes they are trying to tell him something, so he repeats and finally understands it's about carrot seeds. The eyes of the rabbit couple sparkle with excitement. He leans closer, emphasizing the keyword carrot, and the rabbit family nods eagerly. The more he mentions it, the more enthusiastic their response. Talking too much annoys the rabbits. One of them jumps up and kicks him in the face to shut him up. Seijin follows their preference and buys 1,000 carrot seeds. Unlocking the achievement of purchasing earns him 1 loyalty point. Every 100 accumulated points allow him to level up once the seeds are packed in a fancy red bag, landing in Seijin's hands amidst the admiration of the entire rabbit family. Many unexpected events happen to the tower manager, claiming the transactions with the store are going well, probably anticipating new items for exploitation. Anyway, with 1,000 seeds, Seijin and the rabbit family start planting right away. Above the cave entrance, where the grass grows thick, a brown bee is flying somewhere, but seeing the spirited crowd, she stops to see if anyone deserves a sting. Look at those cute little bunny butts shaking, gazing happily at the carrot seeds just planted and covered with soil. They're chattering away, making Seijin feel a bit odd. Even though the seeds have been planted for a few days, nothing has sprouted yet, and they keep lying there. Are they obsessed with carrots? Anyway, his part is done. Now it's time to rest, wake up in the afternoon, to pollinate the flowers and trim the onions. Suddenly, Seijin hears a buzzing sound in his ear. He waves his hand to shoo it away, but it keeps buzzing by his ear. Darn it. So annoying. Why is there suddenly an insect here disturbing his sleep? In front of him is a large brown bee staring intently with its 2 big eyes. The baby rabbit sitting on Sen's lap also looks up to see the creature from another species making its buzzing sound. He hesitates before this winged creature. How come all the tower monsters are so cute? Sajin decides to take a closer look at the bee, but the system promptly pops up a notification that this is a venomous bee. Oh my. Why didn't you say so? From the beginning, a venomous bee, Seijin, quickly closes his palms. He sends out an SOS signal, intending to ask the baby rabbits what this creature is, and if it's dangerous, he notices their parents carrying 5 baby bunnies and running away long ago. Gosh, those miserable rabbit parents, how dare they leave him alone to become prey for a meat-eating bee? To prove that his fear is not exaggerated, the tower manager informs him that this is a venomous bee specializing in stinging and eating its prey. How can a meat-eating bee have such a misleading appearance? Sejin feels his heart just dropped, waving his hands continuously to shoo the bee away. But it keeps getting closer. In his eyes, this bee is no different from a murderer ready to devour him. His legs go weak, collapsing onto the ground, arms flailing, hitting whatever is nearby towards the bee. Not sure if he wants to kill it or sacrifice it for himself, but when he sees tomato branches full of yellow flowers, the brown bee stops and stares at them intently, shifting its focus to the flowers, no longer caring about the timid farmer. A moment later, Sajin dares to open his eyes to take a look. He finds the brown bee sticking its head into the flowers with delight. When it lifts its head, it looks like it just had a satisfying meal, appearing innocent and harmless. Sajin glances at the system window with no trust, asking again if the meat-eating animal is ferocious. It keeps silent without daring to explain. Suddenly remembering that bees can pollinate flowers, Sajin leans closer to the brown bee and whispers, "We have a whole field of tomato flowers if you like. Dive in and enjoy." Turns out this bee is picky despite the abundance of tomato flowers. It keeps buzzing around Sejin, only becoming interested when invited to indulge. So in a stroke of luck, Sajin loses his pollinator, having to manually pollinate using a poking stick. Now that he has time, Sejin turns around to scold his timid rabbit family, who left him alone and now come back to snoop around without a clue. They fidget and act all lovey-dovey, especially this timid rabbit husband, looking so pitiful. The brown bee seems to have finished feasting on the flower nectar, flying over to Sajin, who is still quite startled, gradually backing away, afraid it might change its mind and attack him unexpectedly. The brown bee lands on Sajin's yellow, stained white shirt, stretching its chubby body and taking a nap on his stomach. Indeed, chubby ones often feel sleepy. Well, that's fine, as long as it doesn't turn around and sting him. It's okay. Time goes by. Sajin's tomato field grows steadily, and there are already 120 tally marks on the cave wall. Sajili tends to his garden with the rabbit family every day, cutting fresh leaves. He works diligently while the rabbit children frolic around, which is exactly how children should play. Sajin now resembles an old man watching children play in the yard. The bee, as usual, perches on him. After finishing its nectar feast, it has been visiting Sajin's prehistoric cave for weeks, coming in the morning to work and flying into the forest at night. Sajin's farm is expanding, providing enough land for everyone to live in harmony. Perhaps this brown bee no longer spends time with its own colony and prefers to stay here. Sajin likes it too, especially when it releases honey like this, creating a super delicious and enjoyable honey-dipped onion dish. His rabbit family really enjoys it. Who knows if tomorrow dipping carrots in honey will become their new favorite. Sajin chews on a stalk of honey-dipped onion while thinking happily. At first, he was afraid of being attacked by this bee, but thanks to it, his garden has expanded and he even harvests honey. The status window pops up, just as he is eagerly awaiting to bathe in honey. But when Sajin turns back, it disappears instantly. He doesn't pay much attention, as he's used to the fleeting nature of the tower manager. Sajin shifts his attention to his wall calendar. The blue moon is coming soon. Thinking back to the day the bear came to say hello, he still feels a bit scared. Sajin just hopes to survive through this lunar eclipse on the 121st day before the blue planet appears. Sajin gathers ripe tomatoes into a bag along with his travel gear, prepared like a guerrilla fighter ready for the eclipse. The rabbit family, on the other side, is bustling strangely, each seeming more worried than before. Sajin stands up with a basket of ripe tomatoes, intending to lure them back into the house, only to see the entire rabbit family embracing each other tenderly. What's going on? Getting ready to send their kids off to study abroad. Sajin is bewildered. Before he can grasp anything, he sees the rabbit couple leaving their 5 golden-haired children behind. They rushed back to their house, ignoring the stuttering farmer's words as they reached the door. The rabbit couple turned back, waving goodbye, then closed the door, firmly locking it for safety. Oh my, what's happening? Why did you leave your children here like this? The solar eclipse is approaching. Sajan barely finished speaking when the blue planet appeared, obscuring the sunlight, casting a faint blue light over him. Suddenly feeling a chill run down his spine, Sajan turned around to see the golden-haired rabbit children now resembling muscular thugs. Their eyes turned red, their mouths filled with sharp teeth, and their bodies grew larger, emitting growling sounds, thirsting for blood. Is there still time to send an SOS signal? Tajin felt his scalp tingle, the adorable golden-haired rabbit. Children were forgotten. Just as Sane was about to flee for his life, the rabbit suddenly began to glow like toys amidst the dazzling light. Their fur turned pure white, thicker and fluffier, and all their muscular features disappeared. Wow, surprised. Yet the 5 rabbit siblings appeared in their new forms, all resembling white Tangela Pikachu, except for one black rabbit. That's a ton-sage called the ink rabbit. Perhaps it's from the neighbor's house. Needless to say, Sajan was speechless with amazement. So this is a sign of maturity, a change in fur color they gathered under Sajan's feet, chirping cutely to show off. Since they were born, until this blue moon, it's the 5th time already, isn't it? Sajan curiously approached to get a closer look at them. Suddenly, he burst into tears, thinking something had happened to them earlier. The rabbits looked at him blankly. Oh, this big brother is not only cowardly, but also emotional. The black rabbit beside him tried to comfort him, but ended up being hugged and kissed on the cheek by Sejin. They look so cute. I want to kiss them too. As the crescent moon just moved away from the sun, the rabbit couple stepped out of the door with excitement, seeing Sejin and their children sitting by the fire. The whole family hugged each other happily. It seems that the rabbit parents already knew about this, only Sejin was fooled. Suddenly, one of the baby rabbits raised its hand in the air, the one that resembled Pikachu the most in the litter. Out of nowhere, it made a Doraemon sound, digging the ground with a shovel. Sejin couldn't believe his eyes. Each of them had a rabbit information board in their hands, along with their own farming tools. It turns out that these rabbits all have the ability to summon items when they mature. Even Sejin can't borrow and use them temporarily. And what about this neighbor's rabbit? The ink rabbit seemed to be waiting for Sejin to ask, proudly showing off something bright, a hammer-shaped item. Indeed, a huge hammer. Sejin didn't understand why this ink rabbit offered a hammer. Is it for building something? It carried the hammer on its shoulder, proudly showing that it had grown up. Suddenly, Sejin leaned down to closely examine the information board of the ink rabbit. Unlike the others, it said it was a black warrior rabbit, so it's the neighbor's rabbit. Parents are farmers, siblings are farmers, and each of them has a different fur color and specializes in combat. A few days later, everything went as usual. The baby rabbits had enough farming tools to work, just like their parents. Looking very professional, the chubby rabbits were busy pushing baskets of tomatoes for Sejin to sort and store. Saja felt himself getting older day by day. Just the other day, they were still noisy kids in the garden. Now, each of them has grown up. It's quite touching, but the siblings worked diligently. He looked back at the ink rabbit lying on the ground. Although it's confirmed that this is a warrior rabbit, it still seems idle. To be honest, there's nothing here for a warrior rabbit to fight, nor any structures to build. While thinking about finding a job for the ink, it suddenly perked up its ears, then picked up the hammer and beckoned Sejin to follow it to the water pond in the cave. He immediately realized that hunting could also be a form of teamwork. With a newly lit torch in hand, a fierce piranha fish lunged at Ink to test its new hammer, displaying its warrior spirit. Ink swung the hammer straight at the fish, sending it crashing into the cave wall like a bomb. Ink landed a majestic blow like a true warrior, while Sejin grimaced at the squashed fish sliding down. The black rabbit didn't know what to do, quickly turned back to give a thumbs up to its human brother, but Sejin was unsure whether to praise or criticize. That evening, minced fish was served amidst the solemn atmosphere of the whole family. Ink noticed the siblings' mocking attitude, so it deflated all its joy, and Sajin had to console it with a few words. Since then, the baby rabbits began to be more familiar with their tasks and Inks. Fishing skills improved significantly from the 125th day onwards. The seed shop reopened for a new round of purchases, still allowing Sejin to choose one type. As usual, there were still 3 options, but the quantity had clearly decreased. 10 watermelon seeds for 5 tower coins, 50 pumpkin seeds for 1 coin, or 200 corn seeds for half a coin, no more discounted 1,000 seeds. Sejin was surprised to see such rare seeds being sold this month, partly because he now only had 0.9 tower coins, and there was no choice other than corn seeds, a worry creeping into his mind. It's been over 4 months here without any way to make money. Other awakened players make money by fighting monsters and clearing chaos on the tower floors. Even though they have to split the rewards among their team, they still earn more than Sejin. The second way is to hunt monsters and sell their bodies to merchants on the first floor. The third way to make money is to complete missions and receive rewards. But his tower management system is behaving contrary to what he was told. There are no rewards, but demands for various things threatening to kill if not provided. But Sejin still raised his head and asked if there were any tasks with tower coins as rewards. The window appeared quickly, saying something about tower coins, not understanding, and that the tower management will automatically provide when the time comes. Sejin furrowed his brow. He's already 26 years old and still not considered an adult. How old is the tower manager? Then, of course, the Black Dragon didn't disclose its age, only saying that Saja would receive money when he turned 300. Sejin got irritated. He's a sweaty human, not some monster that lives to that age. And if the tower manager gives money after another 274 years, who will use it then? His distant descendants? Who would he even breed with? After spending all these days surrounded by vegetables and rabbits, seeing he made a valid point, unable to argue back, the system quickly switched to playing cards. Sejin grudgingly accepted the tower manager's personality has always been like this. So he returned to selecting seeds, listening with awe. Sejin could only choose corn seeds and try to envision himself boiling and grilling them and making bread flour, blah blah. After the system congratulated and wished them various kinds of luck, it handed him a red pouch, pouring out exactly 200 seeds without any extras or shortages. But they seemed to be of good quality, so they first cheered each other up to work. The rabbits were very excited about the new food, and in their eyes, Sejin was the expert in providing various kinds of food before eating. His stomach was rumbling with hunger and anticipation, admiring Sejin's resilience. He had been eating only those vegetables and fish for 125 days. If it were me, I'd be crying for days and nights, craving hamburgers, pizza, and bubble tea with new recruits specializing in fishing. Sejin and the rabbit family enjoyed a satisfying meal sitting around the fire. A honeybee flew in from somewhere to say hi. There have been more and more of them in the cave lately, less time in the woods. But Sejin didn't care much with them buzzing around his face. He was happy. Suddenly, the 2 bee antennae pointed in one direction. They flew up into the cave mouth without saying a word. The ink also became wary, grabbing its warrior hammer, just in time for Sejin to notice something new leaping out of the cave mouth. Its 2 hands looked like those of a stretching cat. Its voice sounded awkward, hoping everyone wouldn't misunderstand. I'm not a shameless cat thief here to steal food. The rabbits and the honeybee looked very alert, and Sejin also startled, asking what it was doing there. He was so tense that he forgot this cat could talk instead of meowing instead of answering. It jumped back into the cave, somersaulting magnificently to the ground right in front, then extending a hand with pink pads forward to greet Sejin very professionally. Your customer, Park Sejin. Right, its appearance resembled a cat doing tricks but walking on the ground. And the important thing to mention 7 times. 749 times, it's an orange cat, a merchant. Sejin doubted looking at the cat in front of him. The word on the street was that awakened ones climbing the tower would meet merchants, but no story mentioned that cats could do this job too. Moreover, look at those round eyes. Add to that the pair of soft, chubby cheeks, and especially those little pink paws. Oh my God. How can one resist such cuteness? His heart throbbed wildly. It seemed Sejin was about to faint, but he was still alert enough to speculate that this chubby furball was definitely a scammer. Despite this flirty introduction, Sejin maintained an indifferent demeanor with a very professional bow. It said, I heard a newcomer has traded with the seed shop, Mr. Sane. Its flattery made him want to maintain his coolness, pretending not to care. "So you're here to say hello and offer some lucrative deals." As Theo spoke, he rummaged through his pouch, boasting about having many good items, making Sajin interested to see before even seeing the items. Sajin heard the loud rumble of the cat's hungry belly. He was done for. Where's the image of a cool merchant in front of a customer? Theo scratched his head and ears, hastily apologizing to Sajian, then explaining that it hadn't eaten anything all day, hence the condition. Saja was amazed at the pitiful cat laughing. Suddenly, he cracked a smile that stretched to his ears, looking absurdly cute. "You're Theo, right?" The merchant cat felt shy and glanced over, locking eyes with a whole grilled fish, along with the smiling face of the customer. The delicious smell and the growth golden brown skin made Theo excited, claws twitching, drool continuously flowing. But just a few seconds later, it hastily wiped its mouth, addicted, but still hesitant, so it said it couldn't eat the customer's food. "Don't you want to eat?" For real, Saijin approached Theo and pushed the fish into its face. The sweet and tempting fish meat was both tender and fatty. "If you don't eat this, it would be a waste of a lifetime for a cat." Oh my God, this amazing taste lingers, making saliva drip uncontrollably. Then suddenly there was a meow and the sound of chewing. It was beyond satisfying. With a bone in its paw, Theo lay on its back, licking its lips. Sajin sat beside it, saying it must have been really hungry because that cat had just swallowed 5 grilled fish. It was a glutton, not a cat. Theo quickly got up, bowed his head in thanks, not knowing how to repay such a generous god. But Saijin just smiled and said there was no need, truly a kind and lovely person. Theo happily rummaged through his pouch, wanting to sell more items to make some extra money from him. This trip would be profitable. Ha ha ha, not just 5 tower coins. Sane excitedly stretched out his hands, asking for money for a few grilled fish. Theo angrily bristled all over and shouted back, "It's not free. There's nothing free in this world." Sane retorted cheerfully, then switched to a threatening tone, asking if Theo planned to eat and run. Why not take a look around? Theo, worriedly, glanced around, seeing a whole gang of rabbit thugs punching and kicking, and there's also a black rabbit wielding a hammer. Fuming, it paid the ransom. Then it collapsed on the spot, while Sajun and his gang were ecstatic about easily scamming the foolish cat for money on the other side. Theo silently screamed in his heart. Damn it! He lost all his money before even making a sale, losing money without even doing business. Can't let life trample on me like this. It quickly pulled out its bag in front of Saigon, eagerly saying, "Come take a look." Theo pulled out a purple cloth, enthusiastically displaying 3 items and boasting that they were very popular on other floors: a cup of water, a mini fan, and a handheld hot pack, all for 5 coins. These are items from outside the tower. Right. Cecian and the rabbit gang stared intently at the merchandise, making Theo feel very pleased and proud. Then holding up the cup, it introduced this here, has a magic spell for preservation. Just put something hot or cold in here, and it can maintain the temperature. Next is the mini fan with the wind magic. When you need it, just press the switch like this. Saijin stared wide-eyed at Theo, who was enthusiastically pitching, thinking this cat must be out of its mind. So he couldn't help but interrupt the foolish cat boldly pointing at its merchandise. He said bluntly, "These items are all junk. What are you saying?" Theo straightened up. Damn, this guy dared to call its goods junk. It shows he's just a commoner who can't recognize the true value of these items. Sejin remained calm, pointing to himself. "I'm from outside the tower, cat. What the fuck?" Theo felt like it got struck by lightning. Its ears drooped in shock as it looked at him. Sen had to explain to the poor cat, "This cup is just a thermos by sealing the lid tightly to prevent outside germs, and the mini fan and heating bag only have limited use. They turn off after a few hours." Those words felt like a stab to the weak cat's heart. It crouched down in agony. Clearly it was told they had magic. Just then, the mini fan's wings were shaking, proving Sajin's words were right. Theo frustratedly kicked the fan repeatedly with its foot, shouting in a strained voice, "Move, please." Sajin added fuel to the fire, saying that Skaram was a scammer, tricking the cat like that. Realizing the bitter truth, the cat collapsed to the ground, saying Theo had given Skaram its heart. How could it fall for such a scam? Scarum truly was a wicked trickster, combining being poor and unlucky with this bonus scam. Theo cried like rain, pounding its hands on the ground. Sajin kept marveling at its cute cat-like voice, cursing without any malice, just finding it adorable. The innate performer emerged strongly within Sajin, gently comforting Theo and asking it to tell the whole story. Theo tried to hold back its tears, its voice trembling. It said it came from floor 75, a neutral area of the tower. One fine day, the village cats cheered Theo on to confess its love. It listened to its friends holding a bunch of fish to propose to the cat it secretly liked for so long. Merle was a proud, pure white cat, as elegant as it gets. As soon as it saw the fish, it quickly backed away. The mistress of Golden Jade didn't bother with such cheap stuff, only fancy pate. Maril immediately clawed and shredded Theo's gift. The cheap fish smell made it nauseous. What are you doing? Theo couldn't believe the gentle girl it always dreamed of could act so distant and mighty. But for love, it just dove in, not caring anymore. You should know your place. As Theo was desperately begging Maril, a mocking voice rang out. It was Oren, the son of the richest cat in the village. He swaggered in a suit with a fancy tied salmon, making all the female cats swoon. A lady like Maril deserved expensive things. Then Oren brought the fish to Maril, making the other female cats swoon. Theo, from afar, angrily tried to belittle him. She only likes pate, you idiot. Wow, isn't she beautiful? Totally different from what the simp lord said. Merle's eyes were shining with desire as she looked at the salmon shattering Theo's dreams in pain, chasing after the crush happily in the arms of another. Theo ran up, grabbed Marl's hand, turning into an Indian soap opera, soaked with tears, the poor cat. Theo interrogated the girl. Are our memories together meaningless? Seeing his lover walk with the rich Oren, he hallucinated that everything was fake. Theo looked at the tearful Marl with sadness. Would she dare to swear on those tears? Just days ago, we were frolicking in the sunny meadows, arguing for no reason. You used to slap me playfully. Oh, those days, are you high or something? Maril squinted threateningly. Theo's nonsense story drove her mad. I've only laughed with you a few times, and you're delusional. There was never any frolicking in the sun-drenched meadows between us. There were only days of storms, thunder, and lightning. Theo clinging on, getting scolded by Maril. I don't hate eating fish. Maril heatedly pointed her claw straight at the simp lord. I just hate eating the cheap fish of a poor, ragged guy like you. Theo was shocked to the core, every word tearing his heart apart. His tears fell. The game was over. From now on, the world lost a cat, then those two cats walked away. Theo immediately packed up his belongings, hugged his dreams of becoming a wealthy trader to return for revenge, but life wasn't like a dream. That's why I'm suffering like this now. Saigon and the rabbits listened to the cat's lamentations and felt depressed, sweat pouring out continuously. Theo's life story wasn't over yet. It used 50 silver coins to buy a business license and the necessary equipment to become a trader. With the remaining 5 coins, Theo planned to buy some items to sell for profit. That's when it met Scarum. At that time, the cat was waiting at the counter when approached by a green fairy who introduced himself as Scarum and claimed to know a lot. So they both went to a beer hall with some sexy rabbits serving, looking very different from Sajin's rabbits there. The mysterious Scarum said he had many items outside the tower, and if Theo sold them to people on higher floors, he would make a lot of money. You wondered why Scarum was so good. He immediately adopted a sweet tone, saying, "It's because he values you, considering this as an investment in a new trader." He pretended to be angry when he saw Theo hesitate, saying, "If you don't like it, he can give it to someone else." Theo fell into the trap, not wanting to miss out on good merchandises, so he stopped him and was given a map showing the location of new customers of the seed shop, pushing the paper toward the cat while encouraging him that he could make a lot of money with this item because he provided a lot of confidential information. He asked Theo to pay for the beer, and the cat eagerly agreed. Having spent all the money on Scarum, he didn't have money to buy food. That's why he came here with a hungry stomach. Theo crouched, trembling, narrating, then lay down on the ground, begging because Saijin stole the last few coins, crying because he felt useless, robbed by this human. This cat is both easygoing and foolish, so scare him. clearly cheated and fooled him. Sajin also felt sorry but didn't care. But wait, I have an idea. His face suddenly showed an indescribable expression. His dark mind came up with a way to make money. First, he had to stop the cat from crying. Eat a few more grilled fish. Theo Sejin chuckled. The cat refused immediately. Are you planning to trick me? You don't have any money left already. Who would want to cheat you? I'll give you free food. Hearing this, Theo's eyes widened suspiciously, looking at the scammer. Sejin eagerly suggested the cat work for him, pretending to be friendly while secretly wanting to catch the cat without using a knife on the next day at the tower. Saj found a fool. Sorry, a colleague. Do you want us to work together? Theo was surprised. This move was too strange. He couldn't anticipate it. Sajin explained that he needed a good trader to sell items, but the cat thought he was a pathetic failure. After the recent story, he still wanted to hire me, feeling embarrassed. The cat continued to feel down. I'm just a useless and obscure chicken trader. Not wanting to lose potential labor seizure immediately boosted the cat's morale by praising him and expressing his confidence in Theo. Moreover, your unfortunate life has touched my heart, so we can become business partners. Surely, he thinks a cat can understand that phrase. Right to show his sincerity, Sajin enthusiastically called some bunnies for Theo to broaden his horizons. Just a moment later, the leafy resort by the lake with a garden style was completed. Sajin comfortably lay on the water, absorbing chair, with a bunny standing by to fan cool air. Theo, not used to such luxury, found it strange. At this point, Sajin turned to business matters first by reminding Theo of the bunch of items the cat brought were counterfeit, making the foolish cat reluctant to speak, just wanting to get it over with. This is the right time to propose a deal. Sajin suggests Theo take the items from him to sell, then he'll give you a 3 to 5% commission from the sales revenue dam. Does this guy only speak gibberish? What does he expect from a cat that just knows how to lick his butt all day? Seeing the cat looking confused, he cheerfully said, You can sell the items for a higher price than I said. Sejun is quite sure the cat is capable of that. The higher the price you sell, the more commission you'll get. The big uncle on the side is discussing business vigorously, while these two bunny kids are busy grilling fish. Back to Theo, who is pondering, what kind of commission is that too little? Does that guy think? Easy to fool? Sejun can tell what the cat is thinking. It's time to reveal the ace. He waves his hand to summon the bunnies over. Theo sees the plate of fish in their hands, nearly drooling. Our agreement doesn't stop there. I'll also give you an extra 10 fish. Sejun said, excitedly, pointing to the grilled fish on the bunny's hands. Astonishing. Theo, seeing the bunnies lay the fish on the table, he eagerly sits beside them, even if it's fish. Theo swallows saliva with a gulp. So are you ready to sign the contract with me now? Saigon casually asks. The plan has been successful so far, just waiting for one more nod from the cat. Meanwhile, Theo is struggling internally fiercely. Haven't the previous tricks been enough? Be a smart cat. Don't trust anyone. Theo shakes his head hesitantly, but the enticing aroma nearby keeps coming, making him unable to resist drooling. Quietly, wiping his mouth and regaining a bit of dignity, Theo demanded 20 more fish before considering the proposal. Just as he got that Saijin smile, lost all humanity again, fooling a fool to sell himself to capitalism. What 20 fish? I'll give you 25 fish, he said, as he lifted a bunch of fish onto the table, making Theo's eyes widen in amazement. Oh my God, a total of 25 fish. Any remaining trace of dignity vanished. Theo's ears perked up eagerly, eyeing the food in front of him. Of course, Sijin firmly confirmed, adding you can eat as much as you want when you come here to get the goods. Really, the cat's mouth, legs and tail were all trembling. This salary couldn't be more perfect, seeing the big fish about to bite. Saijin glared, emphasizing the 5 words as much as you want, straight into the cat's naive ears. Dio's eyes lit up. His front legs had to be raised to support his face from falling off. That's it. Prepare for a foolish cat being lured into slavery on the farm. I feel sorry, but oh, well, who cares? The prey has been trapped. Sajin immediately tells his buddies to sign the contract. Theo eagerly raises his paw in agreement, seizing the opportunity. Sajin quickly takes out pen and paper, scribbling a few basic lines, finally sealing it with his and the cat's fingerprint. Happy cooperation. Sajapli pats the cat's shoulder as he happily sniffs around. But less than a second later, a loud scream echoed. Damn it! Theo was so excited that he signed the contract. Unconsciously, he didn't even bother to read what was written in it before slapping his paw on it. It's gone, but now the contract has flown away with Theo's meow, meow cry. Regret is useless now, darling. The contract has been sent to the system and appears in front of the two with the title Lifetime Distribution Contract. Just hearing the name makes me uneasy. Basically, the contract mentions the mutual benefits of cooperation between Sejin and Theo, especially that the cat will be exploited for labor for life. The salary is as Sejin mentioned, but there are some special clauses. First, if Theo can't sell more than 5 units per month, the contract will be automatically terminated. Second, the selling price of agricultural products must always be equal to or higher than the price he specifies. Thirdly, Theo is not allowed to create any additional supplementary clauses on his own. Fourthly, Theo should use a cat's voice to communicate with customers. Strictly prohibited from punching customers in any situation. At the bottom are prominent paw prints like this. There's no escape route left. Looking at the basically slave contract, Theo froze. In contrast, Sejin was extremely pleased. Isn't this an irreversible contract? Indeed, it blocks all possible escape roads for the cat. Theo slumped to the ground. Why did he sign the first contract with this Loki-like guy, not to mention the fourth special clause using a cat's voice to greet customers? I'm super embarrassed about that watery voice. Theo angrily thumped his tail on the ground, glaring at Sajin, burning with embarrassment, but he ignored it, just reaching out to shake hands with his partner, starting work automatically. What's the problem? Angrily brushing off the human's hand, Theo's ears flattened in anger, because it still risked being fired. As the first clause stated, if it didn't perform well, he could be kicked out without any compensation. Sajin trusts Theo. Sooner or later, he will become a bestseller smart cat. Then, he pets the cat's head a few times, hearing that Theo felt ecstatic, suddenly seeing his handsome boss as 1,000 times more attractive. Theo's satisfied expression also made him happy. Winning over this cat is too easy, but what exactly does he intend to sell after signing the contract? He doesn't bother to mention what goods he's going to sell at all, haven't even started, and it already feels off. Tomatoes. Saijin's response startled Theo awake. This boss is a bit funny. People sell all sorts of cool stuff, and suddenly he wants to sell rainbow tomatoes. Sounds ridiculous. Saijin pays no attention to Theo's suspicious look. He picks a ripe tomato from the vine and hands it to the cat for inspection, seeing that its quality isn't too bad. He asks the boss what price he wants to sell it for. In Theo's head, he secretly estimates he could make about .01 tower coin by scamming some newly awakened folks in the tower. But the price Saijin offers is .05 coin. Theo is stunned by Sajin's answer. This guy is increasing the price by 5 times than his estimate. Only crazy people would buy this stuff. Thinking it over, Theo realizes this is also a good thing. At that sky-high price, he won't be able to sell the goods, and it's easy to escape from that devilish contract in just 1 month, but still get to eat grilled fish. Too good. So how many tomatoes does the boss want me to sell? 1,000. Okay, Sajin barely finishes speaking when the rabbits quickly bring out a basket full of tomatoes and a pile of grilled fish wrapped in onions. The efficiency of the rabbits' work surprises Theo greatly. Sajin is so used to it that he only cares about how the cat is going to carry this pile. Theo immediately pulls out the magic wrap. This has preservation space expanding and weight reducing. Spell's food stored in here will remain in its original state for a long time. Let me demonstrate for you, tossing the cloth towards the piled up food. It immediately opens a powerful spatial door, sucking all the food inside. But I have a question. If it sucks everything up like that, what's the point of arranging it in the first place? After sucking all the items inside, the wrapped cloth falls to the ground in the form of a backpack with drawstrings, opening the eyes of Sajin and the rabbit team wide. Would it be better to stuff a little more cheerfully putting on the backpack? Theo bids farewell to everyone. I'll be back early after a few days, saying so it jumps into the mouth of the cave, waving goodbye to the community below, specifically the cheating boss, the rabbit gang, and a big bee, like holding hands. Fast forward, a few days later, on the 38th floor of the tower under the blue sky, there's a hideous spider monster growling. Facing it is a group of awakened people fighting with all their might. The knight with a shield jumps forward to distract the monster, creating an opportunity for the two mages on the team to unleash fireball spells from the right side, distracting it. Seizing that chance, the knight immediately swings his sword, smoothly, beheading the spider. The giant monster's body collapses to the ground, and it's also the moment when praises rain down. Truly deserving the title of Phoenix Leader, Mr. Kim, Dongshik #1, the harem continuously worships the knight as he approaches them. However, Dongshik isn't pleased with those empty praises. He immediately goes straight to the blonde girl and scolds her, telling Jessica to be more diligent instead of flattering. But Jessica isn't afraid at all. Instead, she winks playfully, saying, "Why are you scolding me so loudly? But I still really like you seeing that." Dongshik can only smile bitterly, conceding defeat to such cheesy displays. Suddenly, a series of rustling noises echoes in the bushes behind, making Dongshik some puces, startled as he swiftly turns around. "Who's hiding there?" He shouts loudly, quickly grasping the sword behind his back, making his teammates jump in surprise and turn back to look, only to see a cute, chubby, white and pink cat poking out. Then Theo immediately steps out, taking off his hat to reveal his head, asking with wide eyes, "Do you want to see some good merchandise?" Meow, meow. Dongshik's hand freezes, thinking a monster is attacking, but it turns out to be just a lost cat. But the girls in the team are extremely excited. Running over, someone shouts loudly that the cat is actually a merchant, and with the cat's power, just a few seconds later, a crowd rushes over here. Seeing that, Theo also cheerfully greets. "Hello, nice to meet you, my talented companions. Meow, meow." The cat's adorable voice and its cute gestures melt the hearts of the girls in the team. And now the cat asks with wide eyes again, "Am I cute?" Meow, meow, which makes the girls even more ecstatic. Now Theo understands why the boss made him use a cat voice to sell things. This guy is pretty smart. The greetings are over. Now it's time for the main act. Theo decisively brings out the basket of ripe red tomatoes and sets it down in front of the Phoenix members with a thud. Two curious individuals step forward to take a closer look. This is the bio tomato. The pink-haired girl frowns, realizing the cat is here to sell food. Disappointed, she turns away. Dongshik thought it brought something valuable, like a weapon or some kind of medicine, but tomatoes are abundant outside. If it's going to sell food, it should be hamburgers or hot dogs. What a foolish cat you humans are. The foolish ones. Theo knows they would think like that, so it confidently says this is completely different from the bio tomatoes outside the tower. If you don't believe it, you can check its stats. Meow, meow stats. The pink-haired and the hat-wearing girls look astonished at the tiny tomato in Theo's hand. Could this be an item? The hat-wearing girl immediately checks the system information. Eating a tomato increases 1.01 experience points for 10 minutes. It's not much, so the price shouldn't be high. Each one costs 0.05 coins. Theo's answer makes him jerk up. "Are you out of your mind? I'd rather spend a little more to buy equipment than waste money on this nonsense." Then he immediately turns around and leaves, leaving the pink-haired girl staring at the system board intently. Reading the words, "Eating tomatoes helps reduce 10 grams of fat." The fake awakening girls behind them stand still like statues. Then they shoot piercing looks straight at the pink hair. "Hey, repeat what you just said." Then they hurried to Theo to check the information about the bio tomatoes and found out they could help with weight loss. Just eating 10 tomatoes for an hour could reduce a caddy already. Not only the girls were fascinated, but also a muscular brother with the soul of a teenage girl also eagerly joined in such an amazing item. Not buying it would be foolish. Everyone rushed in to compete to buy. No one yielding to anyone, making Theo slightly frightened. The loud clashes attracted the attention of others. Seeing teammates lining up to buy tomatoes, the whole group then followed each other back to Theo. Even Dongshik, who had just criticized, also hesitated to try a bit at that moment. On the farm in the cave, the system is announcing Sajian's promotion. Busy harvesting tomatoes for next time, he suddenly remembers Theo. If he hadn't called out randomly, he would have probably encountered fake awakenings by now. With the function of burning 10 grams of fat, the bio-tomato will surely become a super hot diet product for women, but only available in the Black Tower. Putting the juicy tomato into his mouth, although he grew it himself, every time Sajin eats it, he never stops exclaiming how delicious this tomato is. His radiant face looking up at the cave entrance, he believes his agricultural products will dominate the market. People on a diet on Earth will surely be ecstatic to see them at this moment on the 38th floor. Theo is panting beside the empty basket with some coins scattered on the ground. This is the first time Theo's life has sold out. Perhaps the legend of the smuggling cat officially began here. Returning to the unstable farm, the carrot garden has started to sprout, while the father rabbit was very excited. Seizure was thoughtful. Only 700 seeds sprouted out of 1,000 seeds. He bought the miraculous bio-tomatoes, also had only 732 seeds sprout out of 1,200 seeds. The corn and sweet potatoes bought at the seed shop and planted by him also reached about 60 to 70%. It seems the germination rate of carrots and bio-tomatoes is similar. Sad sitting next to the carrot plots. Sane wishes they would sprout more, but perhaps the soil in the cave is not fertile enough, or his farmer level is still too low. He needs to quickly find a way to overcome this problem. Now that there are slaves going out to sell goods, the team at home needs to harvest as much as possible. Saijin and the father rabbit were discussing business when they heard a noise. Immediately, turning around, they saw a bright torch spinning above. The author of this story is none other than Ink the rabbit, the little guy standing close to the lake, swinging the torch up high, attracting the fish below to follow. Gripping the ink hammer tightly, he jumps up high, throwing all his might. In just a few seconds, 5 fish have holes in their heads, and the rabbit lightly lands like a god. Ink reaches out to catch the torch, and at the same time, the fish fall heavily to the ground. Who is so skilled? Sijin pulls the whole family of rabbits to approach, not sparing praise when seeing the pile of fish behind the old and young, making Ink pleased, calling out a few pity sounds. Saijin approaches and sees the body of the little rabbit glowing. Has he leveled up? He has seen White Rabbit's siblings level up while farming, but this is the first time he has seen Ink level up like this. Sajin happily pets the head of the old and young rabbit, thinking the little one couldn't level up, but now he's no less than his older siblings. Ink raises his nose, puffing his chest, and turning to the small white rabbits, as if to say, "See how good I am." Despite not liking the arrogant attitude of Ink, they still reluctantly applaud to please the little rabbit. To celebrate Ink's level up event, SAE's Jen generously allows the rabbit slave to take a few minutes off. Sijun conveniently rummaged through his bag and took out a thermos he got from the cat, grinning and saying, "Let's have some coffee." As soon as he opened the thermos, he saw several packets of coffee inside. Sajun eagerly grabbed one. It seemed neither Scarum nor Theo had ever opened it before. If Theo sold coffee instead of the thermos, Sajun would gladly pay whatever price. But that foolish cat didn't know anything. Hence, this ridiculous incident of buying a random item. Sajin poured the coffee powder into the plastic bottle. Even without hot water or ice, he could still make an Americano from lake water. Then he asked for a little honey from the bees and completed the honey Americano. The harmonious combination of bitterness and sweetness created a captivating flavor. Just one sip would dispel all fatigue, filling one with energy for a long day. Sajin happily took a sip. It's so delicious. Seeing his grandchildren looking at him, the kind Uncle Sajin shared the remaining half with them. Ink eagerly tried the poison first, but after just a small sip, his face turned pale and his whole body shook seeing this. The runt stubbornly tried to drink it down. Then the whole group of rabbits passed the black liquid around. Saigon laughed heartily, seeing the rabbits continuously grimacing. It seemed rabbit tongues were quite sensitive to bitterness, so they complained without any sounds, laughing so hard his teeth were about to fall out. Sajin's eyes then caught a bee near the cave entrance, waving hello, baby. Upon hearing his call, the queen bee immediately turned to look. The brown queen bee excitedly flew back to the bee nest, as if to show off to the gang. Sejin down below saw his mouth hanging open in shock for a few seconds. "You moved here," Seijin felt so sad when he had to go home for dinner every day. Now that she moved here, I'm so happy. He joyfully danced with the rabbits to welcome the new member. He even demanded a 2-day, 2-night party. I know this guy is happy because he got another cheap laborer while dancing merrily. The system suddenly appeared, requesting to give 10 cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. There was no reward, but refusing would disappoint him. Because Sajin kept delaying tasks and successfully negotiated with Theo, he no longer threatened him. Seijin chuckled silently, finding him pitiful and funny. Deciding, he took out 10 cherry tomatoes for the manager and immediately received a thank you message. Aha! Now they even know how to say thank you. Seijin's face lit up with extreme satisfaction at the manager's expression of gratitude. Suddenly, his smile vanished. His face turned solemn. He lowered his head against the rock wall in contemplation. Why am I so easily manipulated? Just a little gratitude, and I'm already like this. At that moment in a restaurant in the merchant travel district, a green hand slammed a beer glass onto the table. Why hasn't that damn cat come back yet? Scrom, in anger, cursed at the bugs. For those who don't remember, this is the guy who swindled our little Theo's money. The other two imps had heard him tell the story of fooling the foolish cat, but didn't understand why he was waiting for it. Skaram recounted his woes, wondering why it hadn't returned to the merch guild to report the inventory. How can we sell that pile of junk? Are you worried? One bearded guy asked, but was waved off by Skaram. Should I be worried? But also couldn't ignore Theo, so he was planning for the case. They met again. He had to buy a glass of milk and introduce a job to the cat while lending it money to do business, making the imps extremely surprised. Skaram quickly explained to the stupid guy the main purpose of all this is to trap that foolish cat into a spiral of debt. Eventually, it will become a lifelong slave to him. Skaram grinned maliciously, his eyes gleaming with ambition. That tyranny didn't make his younger brothers afraid, but they expressed admiration. You're indeed a genius. They eagerly suggested going to find Theo to help the boss to gain a little benefit. However, Skaram was in no hurry. He remained calm. The prey would come to the mouth very soon. That indifferent attitude only made the gang of younger brothers worship him more. Having some free time, Skarim immediately checked today's merchant rank. With a smile on his lips, he boasted, "Finally, I made it to the top 1,000 guys." Specifically, he ranked 999th, so he's on top, isn't he? Skaram smiled proudly at himself while listening to the flattery of his underlings. Then he began to scroll up to see those ranked higher, thinking sooner or later he would surpass them. WTF? His eyes widened in disbelief. What's this? Even in his wildest dreams, he hadn't expected to see the fat cat's name on the leaderboard and at position 982, higher than him by dozens of ranks. Seeing this, the two underlings whispered to each other, making Skaram angrily pound the table. He erupted in terrible rage. Does this miserable cat dare to play dumb? To deceive me? If I catch him, he's dead for sure. Meow, 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 I've returned just as he mentioned it. Here he comes. Theo grinned happily, not at Skaram, but at the boss who was sharpening his tools in the garden. Saigon, surprised, turned back, then stood up and asked where the wandering cat had been for the past few days. Theo, not understanding his intention, thought this guy was going to hit him. Scared, he hugged his head and promised not to wander around anymore. Huh? What did you say? Sajin stiffened, making Theo worried. He tucked his ears back and quietly said he had been playing for 4 days. Then he received a scolding from the boss. Clearly, your buddy said it would take at least 10 days for a delivery, but in the end, the cat sold out all the goods and had plenty of time to play. When Theo saw him getting angry, he kept saying, "I'm sorry, please don't be mad at me." At that moment, Sajan was astonished, recalculating, considering both the trip there and back, totaling 14 days, meaning the cat sold all the goods. As soon as he arrived, he heavily placed his hand on Theo's shoulder, twisting his face into an incredulous expression. If you don't want to be shaved bald, quickly tell me everything from A to Z. Theo, sweating profusely, had no choice but to obey the command, so both he and the rabbit sat in the garden listening to the cat. Meow, 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 explaining for a long time. That's all that happened, sir. Theo knelt on the ground, worried about his future. While while Sajin was quite amazed at its selling ability. Seeing the situation seemed smooth, Theo took out money and handed it to the boss. "Here are 50 tower coins for you, sir." This was the first time Sajin had seen a real tower coin. So he carefully examined the gold coin in his hand, bit by bit, then handed the money to Theo. As a morale boost, the cat happily accepted the money, but wondered why he was called an employee. Shouldn't he be the best seller? Oh, this cat still dares to talk back. Saigon decided to demote him for his nonchalant attitude, but if he worked hard next time, he would both restore his position and increase his commission by 5%. Theo excitedly agreed, determined to regain the title of bestseller no matter what. At this point, Sajin asked Theo if he used cat language to sell products. Theo immediately switched to his fancy cat mode, affirming that from now on, he would always speak like this with nothing left to argue about. Sajali fantasized about his future fame, which made Theo think his boss had gone crazy. Sajin kindly explained that the name of the grower would also appear on the product information board, so everyone would know about him. Soon, Theo listened and then meowed in despair. His hair stood on end. Oh no. For rookie traders like Theo, the system would hide the name of the grower to prevent professional traders from stealing their sources. This means Sajin's name would not appear on the board for cherry tomatoes at all. If the boss found out, the cat's life would be over. He would not only be demoted, but also lose his commission, seeing the frightened kid freeze. Saijin immediately bent down and asked what was wrong with Theo, carefully covering his face with a towel. He demanded the goods and then left so soon rest for a few more days before leaving. "Why are you so kind today, brother?" But the cat immediately dashed off his hands as fast as a tomato packing machine, startling his rabbit colleague. There wasn't much time left, so the only way was for Theo to earn 1,000 coins to level up to an intermediate trader to unlock the grower's name. That look of disappointment and worry caught Saiyan's eye. He thought the golden-haired kid wanted to devote himself entirely to the job. Too bad that's not the case at all. Under the clear blue sky stood a tall building. After spending so long in the cave, it was refreshing to see the real world. A group of men gathered, chatting animatedly. Just then, the phone of this burly man rang. Seeing his beloved daughter's message praising the cherry tomatoes, he was moved to tears. "What's wrong?" Mr. Dong Shik, the pink-haired guy, saw his older brother shedding tears and immediately asked. Only now did he learn that his daughter had been struggling to lose weight lately, so she was quite sensitive, yet she sent loving messages to her father today. Dong Shik proudly claimed it was all thanks to the cherry tomatoes in the tower last time. He only bought 20 fruits. But seeing his daughter's positive reaction, he regretted not buying more. But the straight guy next to him muttered, not understanding why women are so obsessed with weight. "I'm sure this guy is forever alone." Another guy then showed his phone wallpaper, telling how giving cherry tomatoes to his crush had led to them dating now, leaving the other two men gaping in surprise. "I still have a few at home." The pink-shirted guy immediately released the bait, catching 2 big fishes in front of him. They begged him earnestly to sell to them, especially the guy without a girlfriend, willing to spend a lot of money to win her over. Before things got more tense, Dong Shik stepped in to settle it. Instead of arguing, he suggested they all go straight up to the 38th floor. His extremely serious attitude startled everyone into compliance. "Oh, I barely had a breath of fresh air and already have to go fight monsters again. Those girls will have more complaints to add." The pink-shirted guy was trying hard to stop them when a sweet voice rang out. "We're ready." Accompanied by the sound of high heels hitting the pavement, Jessica and her well-dressed sisters appeared, looking like they were going out for fun rather than a brawl. Their hot, slim bodies were all thanks to eating cherry tomatoes. So Jessica, feeling hot, wanted to go fight monsters. But in reality, these girls only came to buy weight loss items. Dongshik didn't care about those trivial things. Immediately calling for 500 comrades to head to the Black Tower, boldly striding under the blazing sun. Dongshik vowed to buy the whole package to become a great father in his daughter's eyes, also under that same blue sky. But the continuous sighs of mental stress filled the air. Theo walked away feeling gloomy. When will I have enough 1,000 tower coins? The space pouch limit is 1,500 at this rate. It will take more than 10 more trips to gather enough money. The more he thought, the more his head hurt. The cat looked around, but only saw no one. Where did everyone go? As he was about to leave, two people rushed out to stop him. These were the members of the Phoenix Club. Jessica was excitedly calling everyone out. Seeing the traitor, they rejoiced as if they had found gold, making Theo wonder if he was being hunted. The players told him they had been planting silk trees here for 3 days, fearing that the little cat wouldn't return. Theo's eyes widened in astonishment. Were they really waiting here to buy tomatoes? In the cat's mind, numbers began to jump unusually fast. It suddenly came up with a plan. Upon hearing the customers inquire about the price, it stated that the price had actually increased. "What did you say?" The other guy jumped up to ask, just as their teammates were advancing. Dong-shik, puzzled by what was happening, was told by his subordinate about the price increase of the item. "So how much did it increase? Give me a specific number." Waiting for that, Theo hastily said, 0.07 tower coins, not much at all. As soon as he finished, he worried that he had raised the price too much. Unexpectedly, a wad of money fell to the ground, along with a request for 200 tomatoes. Dong-shik didn't understand why such a valuable item was so cheap. Only a fool wouldn't buy this bargain. Seeing the leader's analysis so reasonable, the members of the Phoenix Club chatted excitedly, then scrambled to buy in large quantities. Theo hadn't even put the goods out yet, but they were all sold out in a flash. Looking at the pile of gold coins in front of him, he was extremely happy. Do I need to raise the price even higher next time? As he was busy collecting money, Dong-shik asked Theo when he would return here. Theo was surprised, but calmly replied, "In 10 days. This time frame is perfect for going to fight monsters and then coming back." Dong-shik cautiously reminded the little cat to bring more tomatoes next time. Then he called the people in the team to carry the bags of tomatoes and go on the mission. There won't be more items for the brothers and sisters to take for another 10 days. Theo sat in the corner, slyly smiling with these regular customers. Achieving the target of 1,000 tower coins in no time is not a dream anymore. I'll quickly level up before the boss finds out. Then I have to open a course on how to become a billionaire in a week, become the top idol adored by tens of 1,000s, being immersed in a future that never happens. Suddenly, 3 beautiful girls appeared from nowhere. "Oh my God, how cute is this little cat?" Seeing the girls, pointing and saying, "I look like that little cat too much." The cat immediately got angry because I am unique. How can I look like any other cat? Don't call me a baby. My name is Theo. Wait, please wait. Hear me out. If you enjoy this video, how about you subscribe, like, and hit that notification button so that you will be able to be notified when I upload another video.